Hey guys, I got a funny joke. Modern Pokemon. See, much like the Nazi Party, it was a lot stronger when it first started out. Pokemon Red and Blue, even though they were primitive, were still great successes. Gold and Silver followed suit, and along with every other Pokemon back then. But the story started to switch on Pokemon when X and Y came out. People thought it wasn't that good. Then Sun and Moon came out, and people thought it wasn't that good. But the straw that broke the camel's back was Sword and Shield. Now I could fill your heads with hours of reasons why I don't like that game. Oh wait, hold up. Okay, we're good. The animation looks like shit, the game looks like shit, the higher-ups at Game Freak are loads of shit, I could go on. But the main thing everyone latched onto was them removing the national dex. For those out of the loop, every time a new Pokemon game came out, they would always have every Pokemon from the last game inside them, with Pokemon Sun and Moon having over 700 Pokemon, which is obviously a lot for the development team, so cutting the amount of Pokemon makes sense. But then you take into consideration the people funding these games have so much money they're literally drowning in it, and obviously Pokemon being the highest grossing media franchise, period. The quality is inexcusable. And now we're on the Nintendo Switch, and Pokemon's quality has started to drift drastically. Sword and Shield are horrible games with barely any content. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee were fine enough remakes, but left a lot to be desired. Arceus was quite good, and Scarlet and Violet. These are two of the biggest buggy messes I've ever had the pleasure of not playing. And since Pokemon sucks, a lot of people wanted to itch that Pokemon nerve, but without playing any traditional Pokemon game. And that's why I come to you today, to give you a bunch of Pokemon games that'll hopefully scratch that itch. Alright, we got 5 games to talk about here, so sorry I can't go into large detail about all of them, but I'll still try to talk about them as thoroughly as I can. Also, don't worry about huge spoilers for some of these games, because it'll mostly only be going into the first half hour or hour or so for these. First up on the list, and what inspired this video, Cassette Beasts. Okay, so I'm just gonna give you the play-by-play of what happened in the first 10 minutes of me playing this game, because it's fucking insane. So I started the game, named myself Glumbo Gilson, and I'm thrown into a 3-dimensional void that I assure you looks a lot better playing the game than watching this footage. We then wash up on a beach when we're met by a lady named Kaylee right before we're jumped by a traffic cone, which prompts her to give us a cassette player. She then asks us our aesthetic, and we're given the options between spooky and sweet. She then transforms into some kind of demon and tells us to hit play on her cassette, which transforms us into some kind of 90s Halloween mascot. We kill the traffic cone after she spits on it, and we're taken back to the village where she says we can never leave, and then we black out. And this happens. I have no f***ing clue what just happened, but I'm all for it. Sorry, I know I said I'm not going into depth with any of these, but am I supposed to just overlook that? This is just supposed to be overviews of like 5 different games, but how can I not talk about that? But the more broad stuff now. One thing that stuck out to me immediately was how damn pretty this game is. It does this really cool mixture of 2D sprites and 3D areas, and it works greatly. I mean, also at the same time, it kind of looks like Crossy Road with how these models look, but it still looks nice. But the sales of modern Pokemon games tell me people aren't exactly here for graphics, so let's talk about what makes this a Pokemon-like. So throughout the land, you'll find different monsters you can encounter, and walking up to one lets you engage it in a battle. So no tall grass to be found. In battle, instead of sending out a creature to fight for you, you yourself turn into one. With pretty basic Pokemon stuff applying. Different creatures have different types are stronger against other types, and attacking your opponent drains their HP until they're sufficiently conked out. But where the difference comes in is the nuance it adds. For example, every monster has an AP meter, which will fill up 2 points every turn, with different moves requiring different amounts of AP. Typically, it's the stronger attacks requiring greater amounts of AP, but that's obviously not all. To capture a beast, you need to record it with varying percentage chance of it actually working, such as how much damage you dealt to it while trying to record it, and how much damage you've taken. But trying to record something also leaves you defenseless because you'll be transformed back into a person when recording. And I really like how this game handles its type matchups too. Instead of just, water does more damage against fire type because water extinguish fire, using different elements against others yield different effects. For example, using a fire move on a wind type beast will cause an updraft and give it a shield, or using a ground type attack on a plastic type will cause it to lose agility because plastic toys getting thrown into landfills or something. And the final bit that's different is fusions. Please ignore the right side of the screen. So after this meter in the bottom left has been filled, 2 beasts can fuse together, creating one big one. I know someone in the audience just got really turned on right now. And apparently the Wikipedia says there's over 14,000 different fusions, and I'm just gonna take their word for it because I'm not fact-checking that. And that's pretty much all the notable ways the battle system has been changed. Okay, what the hell is going on over there? This game, it's fucking weird. I didn't lie earlier. I'm only talking about the first hour or so, and this happened right in the first half hour. And when this shit happened so early on, I knew this game was gonna be something. So you find this temple pretty early on, which turns into an abandoned subway station, which has this thing in it. This feels like something a fan would come up as a mock creepypasta, let alone something in the first hour. Or how about later, when some vampires attack the town and you team up with Pretty Boy to go stop them just to learn they're real estate agents looking to take over the town. This game is hilarious. And I'm not just saying that as, this part made me lol kind of thing. I mean, this game genuinely had me chuckling to myself while playing. The writing is great. Speaking of the great writing. It's been very easy for me to get invested into the story so far. Both the characters and the world have been a joy to interact with. And while I'm talking about the characters, we might as well get this out of the way. This game is a friendship bar that fills with the characters. I was going and expecting the best Pokemon. Why did I get the best Persona game? It's all adding up. Befriending characters with a meter you can fill up, unlocking special abilities through fighting analog horror, a pretty boy with blonde hair, writing that is just as funny as it is dark. This is Pokesona 5. Okay, I have talked up this game quite a lot, so I'm gonna talk about complaints. For one, walking around the overworld just kind of feels like it's a Roblox game. It's hard to describe, but if you're actually playing it, you'll get what I mean. I wish running wasn't tied to a stamina wheel that runs out in 2 seconds. I forgot to bring this up. There's a stamina wheel that'll let you perform certain abilities depending on which beast you have currently. So basically HMs, but a lot more convenient. IDK, maybe I haven't found it yet, but the stamina wheel feels very restrictive. And finally, even though this perspective looks nice, it was very annoying when I was at low health trying to get back to a campfire so I could heal my team, but a snake was hiding right behind this wall and I literally couldn't see him and I blacked out and lost all my weight. I'll finish this by talking about the music. The music in this game is amazing. Sorry to say this again, but it gave me Persona vibes. Give the soundtrack a listen if you care. But that's Cassette Beasts, as much as I'm willing to dive into it for this video. Apparently there's over 100 achievements on Steam, so hey, maybe if I end up liking the game enough, I'll come back and make a full video about it one day. But for right now, we need to move on. For this next game, I would like to start by discussing the Minecraft YouTuber known as Dream. Everybody knows Dream, infamous for his Player vs. Hunter series and creative ideas. I wanted to harness some of his energy for this next game. That's right, plagiarism. Here's Disc Creatures. Could you not be more on the nose with that name? I was looking more forward to playing Digital Critters today, but this will work too. It is not a great sign when your Steam page not only doesn't list if it has controller support or not, but also doesn't have any achievements whatsoever. So we start the game, there is no controller support, nor is there changing what my keys do, so that's great. I'm stuck playing with the arrow pad at the bottom right, using enter for every interaction. This could be fun. At least it's an RPG, which typically don't require a lot of fast acting, so it's whatever. And also didn't launch in full screen, which is great, so you're seeing this, but I'm seeing this. We name ourselves Dumby and wake up in our bedroom, grab some documents, and off to City Hall we go. I would say goodbye to my mother, but she's too distracted by the TV while not looking at it. I didn't make it too far into City Hall my first attempt though, because apparently F12 resets the entire game and I didn't have time to save yet, so our new character is We get down to Town Hall where we get approved as Discar, short for Disc Ranger. Dude, it's literally a one-syllable difference. That abbreviation is pointless. So in the first Pokemon game, Pokemon Red and Blue, which this game is clearly very much trying to emulate, and very closely at that, right after getting your Pokemon, you immediately did a battle with your rival within the first 5 minutes. And this was good because it put you into gameplay within the first 10 minutes so people could know what they're in for, plus to not bore them with dialogue. This game gave me 20 minutes of text. So we wake up and head down to Town Hall. Okay, cool. We're then told what Disc Creatures are. Okay, cool. We are then told to go home and put Disc Creatures in our PC. Okay, cool. We're then spoon-fed some information about how Disc Creatures work by some disembodied voice. Okay, cool. We're then told to go back to Town Hall to speak with Specs some more. Okay, cool. We're then told to go to this whiteboard right outside Town Hall. Okay, cool. The first chapter then begins, and we're told to go into the forest. Okay, cool. This game costs me $15. Okay, cool. And I was skipping the dialogue, by the way, because frankly, it didn't interest me in the slightest, but if I read all of it, it probably would have taken me 20 whole minutes to even get to the forest where I can do one battle. So I'm gonna use Cassette Beasts as an example for what every Pokemon-like should be. The reason you would want a game that is like Pokemon, but not Pokemon, is because 1, you want it to be good, and 2, you want something different. How Cassette Beasts mixed it up was a unique battle style along with a darker plot aimed more towards adults. So with that in mind, how does Disc Creatures shake things up? Well, for one, the battles look like... yikes. As you can see in the background, I am mindlessly mashing the accept button to get through this battle. This battle system, it's literally nothing. Honestly, the battles from any Pokemon game would be more interesting than this, because at least in those games, I can see the creature as attacking, not just a text box. The story? Nothing of even the slightest importance has even happened so far. In the first half hour of Disc Creatures, I got to the second town and sat there wondering why I'm still alone in life, but in Cassette Beasts, we were fighting an eldritch horror. Every game needs a good hook, and this game's hook is made of lead thinner. But let's talk about the positives. I think the designs are pretty cool. The grass starter looked like it wanted to be stomped to death, but hey, it still looked nice. Like this one electric dude who could fly around. It was pretty cool. It'd be nice if I could see him flying around, but whatever. Okay, I'm out of positives. Now, okay, you read the title, and you've come to expect games that are better than Pokemon from this video, right? Yeah, I was expecting that too from this one, and my main reason why was because this game's publisher, Dangan Entertainment. Now, you might not know or remember who that is, but allow me to jog your memory. This is the same people who published Crosscode. Okay, maybe that did it for some of you. But now, how about this? They're also the people who published Dungeon Drafters, a much more recent game that they published and maybe a bit more of you have heard of, but they also publish Bug Fables. Yeah, the same people who published one of the best Paper Mario-like games out there, a little bit over a month before this, published this. I don't usually like to talk about indie games and I think they're bad. All that does is just shit on somebody's hard work, which is no fun. But I feel like I just got robbed of 15 bucks. Yeah, this one's going in the returns, I'm sorry. Maybe try to stray away from this one. But maybe you want something like Disc Creatures, but better. Well, here's Monster Crown. So Monster Crown serves to be more of an evolution to the classic Pokemon, more than a different direction like Cassette Beasts. This gives me a lot of vibes of what if Gold and Silver got direct follow-ups that look the same on more powerful hardware. And this game is pretty much just what if Disc Creatures was good. For starters, it has a really drab opening cutscene. I'm pretty sure what they were going for was moody, but it kind of just came off as awkward because there was literally no music to anything here. I named myself Glum, and then immediately were thrusted into my bedroom with no loading screens inside. Just we're not here, then we're here. You see, this gets it right. In the first 10 minutes, I'm given an intro, tutorial, and the first battle. See, this is how it's done. We get mail-ordered a monster and a sweepstakes from the back of a comic book, and we get a choice between 5 monsters to start with. Ambigu is recommended for you. No, I don't want Ambigu. It looks disgusting. I went with this big whale friend because I loved his design. We're off to explore the world at the ripe age of 14. So how is this going to change up the Pokemon style? For one, almost every move has its own attack animation, which shouldn't be a tall order for one of the highest grossing media franchises ever, but in indie, yeah, that's awesome. But the typings are also something I like. Instead of being based off of elements, they're based off of emotions, like instability and relentlessness. That'll probably make it a lot harder to learn the types, but it's cool nonetheless. Beyond that, we have agreements to stand in for Pokeballs. Instead of them getting caught, they agree to join your party. But outside of that, this is the closest to Pokemon out of all of these. So unfortunately, there's not going to be a ton for me to talk about because of this. And if you want a more formal review on this, I don't know, to watch someone talk about Gold and Silver. Oh, look, mobsters! If you like the classic Pokemon and refuse to buy Pokemon BDSM or whatever it was called, then this is an easy recommend. But I just want to say 2 things though. I looked at a bunch of reviews before buying this, and a bunch of people said it was very glitchy. I've never experienced any of that myself, but maybe watch a review from somebody who has played the game a lot longer than me first. And 2, this game feels a little unfinished from what I played. Like when you finish a battle, it kind of just boots you right back to the overworld. No subtlety at all. I mean, the game is still receiving updates, so if this game interests you and you don't mind a bit of jank, then I'd say go for it. Sorry this segment was way shorter than all the other ones, but that's just because, like, what do you want me to talk about? Every other game going forward and before us changed things up significantly, but this one just kind of straight up Pokemon. And just one final note, apparently the story is like really dark, and if you need any evidence of this, I looked at the global achievements, and here are just some examples of what they were. Hell, the new Messiah, torture no more, and learned of pain. So maybe I'll come back to this one day and fully beat it, who knows. Maybe I'll make a video about this in the future, talking about the Pokemon Hidden Gem, or something like that, but for right now, on to the next one. If Monster Crown was too close to home for you, how about this? Monster Sanctuary, a Pokemon Metroidvania. Now, Metroidvania and Pokemon, they go together like cereal and ranch. So you can imagine my surprise when Monster Sanctuary might be my favorite one. So we start the game, we're given a rundown on the world we're living in, and told to choose an option between character with short hair and character with long hair. I chose character with long hair because I have long hair in real life, and that turned out to be the female option, damn it. And then told to pick a starter between fire, grass, water, and fire again for some reason. I chose this cool looking bird dude named him Nugget. I don't think he'll care very much. It's not like he's sentient or anything. Okay, never mind, he's talking. Okay, so right off the bat, this game looks nice. I've always been a fan of this pseudo 16-bit style that at the same time looks like it could never run on the actual 16-bit hardware. And the main character is animated very nicely. So let's get the elephant out of the room. The fact this is a Metroidvania. In a typical Metroidvania, the main character usually gets powered up by finding different abilities, then they're able to come back to older areas and use those abilities. Like in Super Metroid, after Samus finds the missile, she can now come back and unlock pink doors that have been scattered across the area. Or when she gets the Morph Ball, Metroid can now crawl. And other things like that. So remember how HMs were tackled in Cassette Beasts? Well, it's similar here. Different monsters have different abilities you can utilize to get around. My man Football can create a platform for us to jump off of. Nugget can glide us a bit in the air. And Lumbo can reveal hidden walls. That is not their creature names, that is what I named them. This makes it to where even if you're impartial to one monster that's in your party, you're still going to want to have it on you for platforming or progression. They even have some secrets locked behind having certain monsters, like only monsters that can deliver physical attack can break walls like I mentioned a second ago. And this is the only game so far that doesn't have a catching mechanic. Instead, after you defeat a monster, it has a small chance to drop an egg that you can hatch, containing the same monster. Okay, so basically a catching mechanic. Speaking of fighting monsters, let's talk about fighting monsters. So this game has a mechanic I've never seen in an RPG before, this being a combo system. The closest thing I can think of off the top of my head is like the rhythm game thing in Mother 3, I guess, but they work differently. So like in Pokemon, different moves can hit a different amount of times. For example, my bird dude's feather attack hits like 4 times or something. Well, every hit you do adds 1 to the combo meter, and every new point on the combo meter gives you an extra 5% damage. So if you have a monster that does a bunch of damage, but it's a single hitting move, then you might want to do that as your last turn and let your other monsters rack up a combo meter. I hope that made sense. Alongside this is an MP meter that charges up every turn, and every move costs a certain amount of MP. So if you couldn't guess, better moves cost more MP. Both of these things add a lot more depth to what would be a pretty bland system without it, because until learning the nuance, it felt very boring. Can't think of a good segue for this one, so leveling up your monsters. So in typical Pokemon games, once you level up one of your creatures, they'll typically get increased stats and maybe learn one more move. But when a monster in Monster Sanctuary levels up, they get a skill point. Yes! This game has a skill tree for monsters. You can choose to upgrade their moves, upgrade stats, or give them more moves. It always made leveling up way more fun. Anyway, there are type matchups, but they rarely affect anything. It's partially because at the end of every fight, your team is healed back to full, and I'm a bit iffy on that. On one hand, it means I don't have to stop every 5 minutes when grinding to heal my team, but on the other hand, it kind of makes the game way easier. But I wouldn't necessarily say that's a bad thing, but if there's battles, what are we battling? And that brings us to the monsters. And I think this might have the weakest creature design out of any of these games yet. I mean, we have a flaming caterpillar, which is something Pokemon already did. We have a flaming bird, which is something Pokemon already did. And when it's not doing stuff Pokemon has already done, it's incredibly basic concepts like a slime with a little W mouth or a cat with boots and a sword. I'm not going to say I don't love that, but it's not the most original thing in the world. There's also a Yeti creature called a Yowie. I don't feel super great wearing this anymore, y'all. And while we're talking about complaints, this is also the first game that did not have good music. Like, I can't even remember a single tune from the game thinking about it now. Most of it's just atmospheric or forgettable. Also, I wish the first area looked more unique. I remember about 2 years ago when I first played this game, I got a pretty decent way into it and remembered it when I was looking for games for this video, and I remember it got super unique later on. But this first area, it looks like a Terraria base, and if you've played Terraria, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But aside from all that, the game's just fun. Exploring these areas should get boring, but it doesn't. Fighting should get boring after a while, but it never did. This is a very solid blending of those genres, and I like it. I've always loved the weird-ass genres mixing together and creating something cool, and it's safe to say I'm a big fan. The only drawback, I would say, is the price. It comes in at $20, which might be a bit much for some people. I mean, it's the same price as Cassette Beasts, and I would say that game costs way more money to make. So if you're hesitant, maybe wait for it to go on sale, but if you're one of the 2 people who are big Metroidvania/Pokemon fans, then I'd say go for it. Now, before we head to the final game on this list, some honorable mentions that I cannot play. So Temtem is probably a game you've heard of in the Pokemon-like scene before, and it's probably the most popular one, but unfortunately, I will not play it for this video. My reasons being, everything is online, and apparently, recently the mods have gone mad with power, and... So if you're interested, maybe wait a bit before getting this one until they get their shit back together. And what I really wish I could talk about for this video, but unfortunately cannot, as it is not out yet, is Pal World. I could explain what this is about, but I'm just gonna let the footage speak for itself. Okay, that's enough of that, and I've saved maybe the best or maybe the worst for last. I don't know, I'm scripting these as I play them. Coromon. So if you're somebody who grew up with Pokemon and just wishes they would finally make a new good game that's also a return to form back to when the games were 2D, well, I think Coromon is a game for you then. I would say this is probably the best game on the list. My personal favorite is still Cassette Beasts because it's cool, but if you're looking for a Pokemon game that evolves the formula more than Monster Crown, is a bit more traditional than Cassette Beasts, and also is better than whatever the f Disc Creatures is doing, then this is the one. So we start the game and our mom wakes us up and we get a character creator. I made myself look like a pimp and named myself Toledo. And it's off to the train station where we make our mom cry and leave forever. We are off to the Monster Academy, and right off the bat this game gives me great signs. It asks which difficulty I want to play on, giving us an easy mode, which will, among various things, make our Mon go back to full health upon leveling up. Normal, which is just everything set to default. Hard, which I don't think I'll have to explain what a hard difficulty does. And Insane, which is literally just a Nuzlocke mode. And since apparently Pokemon Company hates Nuzlocks and doesn't want you to have fun, this is great. After a bunch of riffraff and monkeying about, we get a personalized quiz to determine our starter. No matter what, you can still pick whatever one you want, but it's cool that I'll recommend one based off what kind of playstyle you have. And apparently my playstyle is candlelit dinner.
Sachet, my darling.
I chose a little ice ball man because the game told me to, and we're off to the first battle. And would you look at that, unique battle backgrounds. That's right, f you, Sword and Shield. And dude, this game's battle backgrounds are pretty. Ignoring the overworlds, which look like a chibi Stardew Valley, this game looks great visually. Backgrounds and animations for the monsters have so much detail, and it's a joy to look at. This is my eye candy, and these creatures' designs do not disappoint either. Look at him. I want to buy overpriced merchandise of him. The battles are by far the most straightforward so far, however. It's pretty much exactly like Pokemon except for adding an SP meter, which needs to be refilled with this game's version of Poke Centers. It's basically just a universal PP. Stronger attacks, cost more amounts of SP, yada yada yada. Outside of that, there are also type matchups, which, while I'm on the topic, let's talk about these. I actually really like these. It's the basic whatever thing does more damage against thing because thing is stronger than thing kind of setup, but it has weird ass types. No grass type, magic type, and malicious type. Those are star signs, not elements. You capture beasts using spinners instead of balls, and you heal them at a Coromon station. This game isn't subtle, is it? This is essentially, what if Pokemon, off the coattails of Black and White 2, kept making games in the same vein of that one, but like, good. This is even the first game we've talked about to feature tall grass instead of having them just wandering around the overworld. This is Pokemon. Honestly, a game like Black and White is a tall order, let alone a good one. And this game delivers. Unfortunately, there's not a lot I can say except if you like Pokemon games on the DS, then you're going to really like this. It's safe and experimental at the same time, and I like that. If you're a Pokemon fan that wants something like the Game Boy games, again, then I'd say go for Monster Crown. If you're a Pokemon fan that wants something like the DS games, but brand new, then go with Coromon. If you're a jaded old bastard like me who wants something completely different, then go with either Monster Sanctuary or Cassette Beasts. And if you're somebody who wants to waste $15, then go with Disc Creatures. You know, at the end of the day, even though I'd have my distaste towards the Pokemon Company and Game Freak in general, there's still obviously an audience out there that loves this type of gameplay, and that's honestly kind of beautiful. They've created a fan base dedicated enough to make their own Pokemon-like games that's not even mentioning ROM hacks, like Pokemon Uranium, which Pokemon Company also demanded to be burned. Okay, I'm sorry I shat on Game Freak a lot in this video, but come on, they deserve it. They probably worked to the bone and paid nothing for games that they're not even going to get to enjoy because how rushed they are out the door. And at the end of the day, it isn't their fault. 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 Fault.